Hey quilty friends, it is time for block 2 of the Designer Mystery Quilt Along from Fat Quarter Shop. Hopefully you got in on the fun and the kits weren't sold out before you decided to pull the trigger on it. But I have the kit and the setting kit and the backing. I bought the whole shebang. I just love Corey Yoder's fabric, and I've never participated in a mystery quilt along. I have block 2 ready. I have ahead of time used foundation paper for the flying geese and the half square triangles, and I use Fat Quarter Shop's paper. I think it's from It's So Emma. I will tell you the directions are in there, but I typically cut my fabric a little larger and a little messier, meaning I don't give it a specific cut with a ruler. I eyeball it, and that may make some of you clutch your pearls, but it's okay. You can do your quilt the way you want to do it. I'll do mine the way I want to do it. Maybe you'll see something you like and use it. Maybe you'll see something you're like, I'm never doing it that way, Tammy. No, thank you. And that's okay. I don't aim for perfect quilting. I aim for what I like. And if it's an oops I can live with, I'll live with it. Oops does not bother me. Some things I'll correct, some things I'm like, you know what? I am not fixing that, and I'm going to roll with it. So if you're like that, then you're probably my people. But if you're not like that, you can stick around too. Everybody's welcome. But let's get started with block 2. And it's called Stars Align. Joanna Figueroa from Fig Tree and Company designed this block, and it's block 2 again. It finishes at 12.5 square, and of course it uses Corey Yoder's fabric, the Abloom line, which is beautiful. So I have my flying geese made, and I have my half square triangles made. Half square triangle, I press them open. I do starch my fabric heavily. Flying geese, isn't it beautiful? And I dropped it. Flying geese. I pressed the back. So I have laid these out according to the pattern on my design board. I am missing some of my corner squares, and I'll show you why in a minute. So I've got all my fabric starched, pressed. I have cut all my pieces. I used foundation paper for my flying geese and my half square triangles. And I like using them when I've got a lot to make, because it just, to me, it makes them look pretty. It makes them look more accurate. There are some other methods I've tried. They don't work for me. You find what works best for you. I do want to try the 4 at a time method, and then the ruler that trims them out, the flying geese ruler. I haven't tried that yet. I might like it, I might not, but so far foundation paper is my go-to when I've got several to make. So even the little ones, look how pretty they are. They're tiny. If I had tried to make a flying goose this small, it would have been wonky. Important to remember, this white on white fabric, make sure you have the right side up. It's real easy to get the right side down. Ask me how I know. Look in my scrap bin and you'll see some oopsies. Some people would say I waste fabric because I cut larger pieces, like with foundation paper. And that's okay. It may be by their standards I waste fabric. By my standards, I'm not wasting fabric. I look at it by my standards. I'm keeping my mental peace. And that's the way I like to do things. There are some things you can skip over if you use foundation paper, because you don't have to do the flying geese and the half square triangles the traditional way. So I'm skipping those. The blocks in the corners, from here they look like squares. The blocks in the corners, and then right above them there's a block. So there's 2 blocks in each corner. See right there? From a distance, it looks like one square, but it's really a 4-patch. It's 4 small squares connected together. So what you have is 2 of the white on white and 2 of the low volume white with kind of a grayish flower on there. I'm not cutting those squares out and piecing those together. I'm strip piecing. I'm going to piece these together, making sure I have my white on white right side up and my gray on white right side down, so my right sides are matching. Alrighty, I have my strips pieced together. I've got to end up with 8 4-patches, which means I need 16 strips cut this way. For example, if the directions call for these squares being 2 inches, a 2-inch square, I'm probably going to cut my strips 2.5 inches. So I have extra to work with and then trim down. I am going to put the straight edge on my mat as best I can. Then I'm going to trim this end up and make it even. In order to make sure my ruler's even as well, I'm matching it up with some lines on my ruler because I don't want my ruler to be wonky, and then I'll make a crooked cut. So I try to find a vertical and horizontal line to make it even. Sometimes I get to fretting over this too much and I'm like, just cut the thing. Two. Now we're going to make 4 squares. I will maybe, do I need to pin these together? I use so much starch if I'm going to nest seams. I usually don't have a problem. But once you nest the seam, if you want to use pins, secure it on both sides and then closer to the end. And when you open it, you'll have your 4-patch. Also, do one last check. Make sure you've got the white on white facing up. Because if not, I don't know if you can see the difference. You don't want to stitch them together this way because that's not going to look right either. Make sure when you're stitching them together, the same fabric is diagonal from each other. We'll be able to lay out everything on the design board once I have these 4 patches in place. Okay, I've stitched those together, and if you aren't familiar with chain piecing, let me tell you what that is. Chain piecing just means when you have several pieces to stitch, and usually it's the same cuts, maybe it's the word I'm looking for. You do not cut your thread in between stitching. You just keep feeding it under your presser foot. Then you go through and snip them or use a thread cutter and cut them. So I've chain pieced. Now I'm going to snip these and press them to one side. You don't have to have a fancy thread cutter. I have one and it got misplaced in the shuffle of moving and redoing my room. So until it turns up, I'm using my seam ripper, or I can use scissors or what have you. And most machines have a thread cutter somewhere near the needle too. So now I'm going to press these and I'll be right back. I'm back. I've pressed them, put them under my clapper. I decided to press open. I believe the instructions say press to one side, but that last seam I pressed open. Now, because I sized my blocks larger, I can trim down. And the reason I sized my blocks larger, I'm going to show you right here. If I had cut this one exactly to the measurements, I would have a problem here because this one is wonky. So now I can go in and cut it down to the exact measurement. I'm lining up on the center of the ruler with the center of the seam or the center of the square. Let's get to arranging. Made my layout, put together what I had, and let me see what direction these go in. Okay, the darker print is supposed to make like an Irish chain, an X through it. Oh, look here. I cut my corner squares almost all the time. I cut them larger. So when I stitch this together, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to stitch row 1 to the middle. I'm going to stitch the bottom to the middle. And then I'll trim it down to be square. And have you ever noticed how sometimes when you make your corner squares, they might come in a little twisted or a little short? Well, if you cut corner squares 1/4 to 1/2 inch larger and trim down, you won't have that problem. And I think I picked up that tip from Kimberly Jolly. Right now I'm just arranging everything to the way it looks according to the instructions. So I've got this looking good. My flying geese are pointing out. My corner square or my half square triangles are facing each other to make a little hourglass shape. Hourglass, hourglass, hourglass. Then my white on white and white on gray is forming an X. All right, that looks good. What I'm going to do first is stitch all my corners together. Then I'm going to stitch my flying geese together. And I'm going to stitch my star. So the directions are written with excellence. Follow those, or you can, blaze your own trail. So to stitch these corners together, we want to stitch side to side, side to side. Then I'm going to stitch here. So when we finish, we'll have one square out of 4. Each time I stitch, so once I stitch here, I'm going to press and put on my clappers and let it cool. And then when it's cool, I'm going to stitch, press, and put it on my clappers and let it cool. Okay, they're cooling. I'm going to stitch my flying geese. The gray and the birdie print, I'm going to stitch them here. There's no seams to match, so this should go fairly easy. you can see where the point is going to be, so make sure that your stitching is slightly above that. And even if it's not a 1/4 inch, you can go as you're stitching. If you know here isn't a 1/4 inch, as you get closer to it, just edge up a thread or two so you can go above it, and then slowly edge back down. It's a little cheat trick. Didn't lose a point. Okay, I'm going to press my flying geese, put the clappers on it, and I'm going to bring back those squares I stitched together first and show you. Okay, flying geese have been pressed and are on the board with clappers cooling. So now I need to finish up my corner squares. So I'm going to take a seam here, and I'm pressing the bulkier seams open. On my flying geese, when I stitched those together, I pressed them open. I'm going to stitch these together and press open. You will hear me say set the seam and press. Set the seam means once you stitch it, you put your iron on there for about 3 to 5 seconds. And that locks in the stitches. It helps your stitches to be straighter, or to remain straighter and not warp. And then you press the seam to the side or press it open. So I'm going to stitch here, then I'm going to press the seam open, set the seam, press the seam open. I think I'll just pin right there in the center since it's nesting so well. Okay, I have my flying geese back. They're cool. If you'll notice, I did not lose a point. I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to go to the center star of the block and stitch this together. Remember I said I cut my corner squares about 1/4 to a 1/2 inch larger. I'm going to stitch 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to stitch the rows. I'll stitch the bottom to the middle and the top to the middle. And then we'll be ready to put together the final pieces of the block. When you cut your blocks larger, you need to think, where does the overhang go? This is the bottom row, so the overhang will go to the outer edge, which is here. Because if I stitch it with the overhang on the interior, it's going to defeat the purpose of why I made the block larger to trim down. And I'll have to end up trimming it down here so I can stitch the edges together. So the overhang should go to the outer edge of the square that you're going to trim up. Okay? Again, I'm making sure my white on white is the right side up, because y'all, it's really hard to see it sometimes. So this is the bottom. I do need to set my seam and press, but just to show you what we're working with. Now I'm going to do my middle and my top. The top will be the same way because it's the same pieces. It's just the top instead of the bottom. And my overhang needs to go to the outer edge. Stitch my center of the star together, and the flying geese on the center point out. So here and here I'm going to take my 1/4 inch seam. I do not want to stitch into my point on my flying geese, which is right here. So when I take that 1/4 inch seam, if I notice that my 1/4 inch is below there, I'm going to try and steer it above. Okay, that looks good. I am going to press these, put them on the clapper to cool. The center star is cooling. The corners have finished. Here they are. They are very stiff. And I wash my quilt starch washes out because I don't want a scratchy quilt. I did press the seam open here. I pressed my flying geese open. All right. While I'm waiting for my center star to cool, I can stitch the top and bottom together. So 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch. I will use pins. Both of these seams are open, and I want the seam to join there and match. So I'm going to use pins all the way down, and I'm going to use the polka pin method. A lot of quilters use that method, and what I'm going to do is put my pin on or about where the 1/4 inch seam should ride. Then on the other side, I want that pin to come through where the 1/4 inch seam should ride. And I kind of straighten it. So I should have my seams matching now that I've got the pin through the seam. And while that's there, here's how I secure it. I put a pin on each side in that seam allowance before I remove my polka pin. So that should line up. And if it doesn't, we can adjust it. Now I'm just going to pin to secure it as I'm stitching. And I'm going to do this to all 4 flying geese sections. And before I start stitching, I am looking to make sure I'm stitching the right sides together, the correct sides together. So this is the top corner. Got my Irish chain X started there. My flying geese are up, so that looks good. This is the bottom. My flying geese are pointed down. My, look. No, that's right, because I'm at the bottom. Flying geese pointed to the bottom. My Irish chain would be going this way. Okay, that's right. I'm pleased with that. I am going to press these and bring back the center star so we can finish it up. Okay, we're just going to put this star together. Do need to match the seams in the corners for the top and bottom. Looking good, looking good. pleased with it. I'm going to press this. I will press my seams open. There's our square. Now let's trim it down. In fact, I don't think I'm going to use this ruler. I think I'm going to use my longer ruler. And I'm just going to trim to make the edges straight and to maintain my 1/4 inch. And as best I can, I want to make sure I have horizontal lines on my ruler aligning with the seam. Making sure my points get a 1/4 inch. It's actually trimming up rather nicely. Better than I thought it was. Now I'm going to bring this back and just see how I did. Alright, I'm very pleased with this, y'all. The next time you see this, it will be stitched together. I am going to do the settings. I'll do those on a later video. I'll get us caught up on whichever block I'm on. I'm on 1 and 2 so far. Maybe I can get to the settings before block 3 comes out. So what I have to do now is stitch the middle pieces together. So I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch here and press that. Then once that's stitched together, I'll stitch the middle to the top and the middle to the bottom, and we'll be done. Did I lose any points? Ooh, I cut it close there. I almost got it. I'm pleased with this. So now I'm going to sew the bottom onto it. Then I'll press it and we're done, done. Here's my square. All done. Is it perfect? No. Is it finished? Absolutely. Am I content and happy with it and satisfied? I sure am. All right, quilty friends. Here's my block. I'm happy with it. All right, quilty friends, that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate you giving me a thumbs up. And please feel free to subscribe. I would love to have you subscribe to my channel. And until next time, happy quilting.